Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is episode 15 of the Maxwell Files. Ghislaine Maxwell filed for an appeal of the depositions that were set to be released on Monday. Well, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals has recognized her motion, and they have decided to hear the case. So I thought that this was probable. I thought that the Second Circuit Court of Appeals would at the very least see this case, right? It wasn't something that they were going to just dismiss out of hand. And as of today, that is exactly what they're going to do. And again, that doesn't mean that the depositions are going to stay sealed forever. Unfortunately, it does mean that they will not be revealed to the public on Monday. It looks like September 22nd is going to be the day where the appeals court makes their decision or has their hearing, and we'll know a lot more then. But tonight we have an article from the Miami Herald originally, but it's being run in the Tampa Bay Times, and the headline is Epstein confidant, co-conspirator, fellow child abuser, general all-around scumbag, Ghislaine Maxwell wins fight to keep records sealed. For now. This article was authored by Ben Weider and Kevin G. Hall. Ghislaine Maxwell's controversial deposition from a 2015 lawsuit will remain sealed until at least late September after a federal appeals court agreed late Friday to hear her request to block the release of the deposition by the accused sex trafficker and alleged madam, aka co-conspirator, aka boss, aka General Scumbag, to disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. And again, it was very likely that the Second Circuit Court of Appeals was going to hear this case. The real question becomes not if they were going to hear the case, how they're going to rule. And like I stated earlier, they already have precedent for releasing documents in the same exact courtroom. So I'm not going to make any predictions one way or the other because I don't know enough about their overall rulings within that court to know which way they're going to go. But what I will say is that precedent usually plays a huge deal in things like this. So I would not be shocked either way at this point. But you would think that the same court that dumped the 2,000 pages in the Epstein case would find it hard to deny the judge's order in this case when it is very similar. The action by the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit effectively stops the release scheduled for Monday of a deposition given by Maxwell and another one she wants blocked involving a mysterious person known only as J. Doe 1. So, not only is it the Maxwell deposition, remember, it's the other deposition as well. And as far as we know in the public sphere, the person's name is J. Doe 1. So, John Doe 1. Who that is, it's anybody's guess at this point, right? For my money, I think it's going to be somebody of significance, but again, that's just a guess. Maxwell's appeal will be heard September 22nd. So that will be the day, I'm guessing, that will see which way the wind blows. Now, I don't know if they rule against her, if the documents are released right away, or if there's some sort of waiting period. That is a question that I'll have to look a little bit more into. The release of the documents stems from a pleading by the Miami Herald on behalf of its investigative reporter, Julie K. Brown, whose Perversion of Justice series in November 2018 spotlighted how Epstein escaped justice in 2008, despite overwhelming evidence that he had sexually abused women and underage girls. And again, Julie Brown's piece did definitely put some spotlight on what was going on, right? Opened up some eyes. But if everybody would have just listened to what these survivors were saying, Maria and Annie in the 90s, Virginia after, and the other girls, then I have to tell you, folks, we wouldn't have to be relying on something like this because all of these people would have been put away a long time ago before they could have been involved in creating more misery. Lawyers for the Herald filed a motion Friday opposing any further delay on the document release. The district court made specific, well-reasoned findings on the record determining that Miss Maxwell's deposition testimony, among other judicial records, should be unsealed, argued Christine N. Walls with Holland and Knight. To overturn the district court's ruling, Miss Maxwell will need to show that the court abused its discretion. She cannot do so. And again, that's another thing that goes into the favor of this stuff being released. I really don't think that they have a tenable position here, right? They don't have a position that can be defended. All they're doing is looking to muddy the waters, like Preska said, and slow things down. And while they have accomplished that in one regard, on the other hand, things are on fire right now. Like I said, those of us following this case, the stuff that came out in those documents probably wasn't going to be earth-shattering. But to those who have not been following this case, the unsullied, as I've dubbed them, well, those people, they are all over what has been released in those documents, and people want answers. U.S. District Judge Loretta Preska this week ordered the unsealing and release of dozens of documents from a now-settled defamation suit involving Virginia Roberts, who claims Maxwell brought her and other underage girls to Epstein, who sexually abused them and trafficked them to powerful men. Not only that, Ghislaine Maxwell was taking part in the abuse. That's a very important part to add. Preska chided Maxwell's lawyers for delays and shot down 2 attempts Thursday to slow down the release of all documents, which then began trickling out late Thursday night. They tried their usual tactics, right? They tried the old okey doke. They tried to slide in at the 11th hour and get everything barred from coming out, and it did not work. And Preska, while not only denying their request, she basically made fun of them. Now in federal detention in Brooklyn after her July 2nd arrest on federal charges, Maxwell appealed the unsealing of a deposition she gave in the 2015 defamation suit because it is the basis for the perjury charges brought against her in the Southern District of New York. Her lawyers argued before Preska, without presenting proof, that lawyers for Roberts improperly shared the deposition with federal prosecutors. And again, they're going to make all sorts of assertions. They're going to do their best to get their client off. And that's their job, right? It's up to the prosecution to meet them at every turn and turn them away. It's up to them to counter. Every strike thrown by the defense must be countered and answered with something as thundering or more from the prosecution. And what you see with her defense team here is these guys know that they're up against it, and they understood that even the documentation that was released already, the 638 pages, was damning. What they really understand, though? They really understand that this deposition and the other deposition, they have the potential to blow this case wide open. Wide open. The broad outlines of the deposition are known. Maxwell is said to have been obstructive, refusing to answer questions about the sexual habits of Epstein or her own personal life. In the transcript of a deposition of Roberts released Thursday night, the Epstein accuser said under oath that Maxwell lured her from a job at now President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago club to become a masseuse for Epstein. Roberts alleged Maxwell groomed her and others to be sexual playthings for Epstein and his friends. And we know this, right? We know for a fact that she worked at Mar-a-Lago, and we know that that's where she was recruited from. Those are indisputable facts. And like they stated a second ago, we have the broad outline for the deposition already. We know some of the tidbits. We know some of the stuff that's in it. But for me, it adds context. When you have receipts that you can look back on and you can point to and you can provide and you can share with people, it carries a lot more weight than just saying, no, look, trust me. I know that this is a fact. Again, it is not what we know. It is what we can prove. Her lawyers in the civil suit suggested that the deposition had been released to the government by Robert's lawyers in violation of a protective order barring its release to law enforcement, suggesting that Maxwell's lawyer might try to challenge the perjury charges she faces in the criminal case. And again, they're looking for the loopholes, right? It's not that Maxwell didn't commit the crime. It's not that she didn't commit perjury. Oh no, it's the fact that those documents are out there now. Shut up, all right? She perjured herself multiple times. Everybody knows it, and now she's getting called on her BS. It's the same with the WikiLeaks dumps. They wanted you to focus on the fact that they got so-called hacked, the WikiLeaks emails. And they didn't want you focusing on the content of those emails. And it's the same shit here. It's always the same word games with these people. The same sort of word salad. Well, we're not buying it. We now read between the lines, and we know that coming into all of these situations, we have to be very skeptical of everything and everyone involved now. Robert's lawyers rejected the accusation as completely and utterly false in a filing Friday. Maxwell's counsel made no effort to contact us before making these serious charges, nor, as we understand it, did they make any effort to check with the government, Robert's lawyers wrote. And that's what they're trying to do with this sort of situation. Maxwell's team is trying to make it look like there's improper behavior on the part of the prosecution and the lawyers for the girls. They want to have another ace in their hole, right? Something they can point to. They're trying to destroy credibility, and it is very obvious what they're doing right now. While Maxwell was successful in at least temporarily blocking the release of the disputed depositions Friday, her legal team in the criminal case was rebuffed earlier Friday in its attempts to negotiate a protective order that would allow them to publicly identify in filings alleged survivors of Epstein and Maxwell who were not party to the criminal case if those alleged survivors had come forward publicly. I'm really glad that they shot this down, right? Because the last thing these survivors need is more drama, more idiots trying to track them down on behalf of these sick bastards that they're pulling the string on, that they're telling the world what they did. These are dangerous people we're dealing with, folks, right? We got people that are involved in the highest levels of government, some of the richest people in the world, and we would be naive to think that there are not great lengths that they would go to get themselves out of trouble. Deciding to participate in or contribute to a criminal investigation or prosecution is a far different matter than simply making a public statement relating to Miss Maxwell or Jeffrey Epstein. U.S. District Judge Allison J. Nathan wrote in denying the request, along with denying a request for greater restrictions on the use of discovery materials by the government and the witnesses. So they're positioning themselves, obviously, for discovery. That's going to be a key here because that's when the rubber meets the road in these cases. When we get to the discovery phase and all of the evidence is submitted for both sides to see, that is when the rubber hits the road and we find out just how good these lawyers are at their craft. In another development, late Friday, the Epstein estate released its third quarter accounting report from April 1st to June 30th. The document reveals how lawyers are receiving large payments from the estate. This bothers me. I am tired of seeing this estate pay out money to all these other jerk-off clowns. Meanwhile, the girls have not received one single dime yet from this silly-ass compensation fund. I'm starting to have my doubts about that as well. One firm, Hughes, Hubbard & Reed, received more than $1 million in the 3-month period. Troutman Sanders, LLP, received almost $800,000 in the period. U.S. Virgin Islands-based Keller Halls Ferguson Croblin PLLC received more than $312,000. What are they all doing? What is all of this money going? Why does he need all of these lawyers? Shouldn't the estate just be handling it, the estate on its own, with a team of lawyers? Why aren't these funds seized and frozen? The report highlighted 2 payments into the newly created Epstein Survivors Compensation Fund, together worth more than $2.8 million. Oh, a whole $2.8 million, huh? Forgive me if I'm not impressed. Considering the amount of money we're talking about here, considering the magnitude of this man's fortune that is stashed overseas and hidden in other banks that we might not have the evidence of right now, the evidence that would lock it in, but the circumstantial evidence and reports from people like Steve Hoffenberg who would know, well, that leads us to believe that there is much more than the eye can see. The report also shows that Epstein sold for almost $1.1 million a Bell helicopter that was allegedly used by Maxwell, who had a helicopter's pilot's license to bring young girls to Epstein's Little St. James Island. And not only Little St. James Island, but she would do the same thing from the airport in Santa Fe, New Mexico. How do I know that? Well, I had sources confirm that to me while I was in Santa Fe. Not only that, earlier today, Alan, I kept my underpants on dirty ass Dershowitz was on the Tucker Carlson show, and Tucker Carlson, shockingly enough, was asking him some pretty damn hard questions. And I'll tell you what, folks, it almost looked like Dirty Dersh was having a Prince Andrew kind of moment. Now, Tucker Carlson didn't go as hard as he could have, but he most certainly did ask questions that nobody else was asking. He asked him about Bill Clinton. He asked him about his involvement with Epstein. And I'll tell you what, Dershowitz made some statements that sure sounded like some lies. They sure sounded like they weren't based in truth, the statements that he was making, trying to defend his buddy Clinton. And then the funniest part to me was when he tried to use all of these other people that were supposedly around when he was on the island as character witnesses. Half of them are accused of being involved with Epstein as far as in the trafficking ring, and the other half of them were enablers. So who does this guy think he's kidding? And also on that Tucker Carlson program, before I forget, Tucker Carlson asked Dershowitz directly, was Jeffrey Epstein an intelligence asset? And Dershowitz, of course, went into this big spiel. Oh, no, he's not part of the intelligence apparatus. Oh, he's definitely not in the Mossad or the CIA. Or nobody asked you any of that. Why are you throwing around the CIA and the Mossad, bro? I'm telling you right now, Dershowitz was absolutely shook. And another thing that Tucker asked him that I found mind-bogglingly shocking, that it was being asked on Fox News of all places, was he said to Dershowitz, they were talking about Dershowitz's personal relationship with Epstein, right? And, you know, Dershowitz has said he stayed at the houses, et cetera, et cetera. And then he had the audacity to say that his relationship with Epstein was only professional. And Tucker Carlson said, well, I don't know about you, and I'm paraphrasing here. I don't know about you, but I don't let anybody, I don't stay at anyone's house if I'm not their friend. What does that even mean, basically, is what Tucker was asking him. And, of course, Dershowitz went into his whole spiel, blah, 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 blah. And it was a pretty interesting interview, to say the least. Dershowitz looked shook as hell. And I have to say, I think that this interview right here, folks, is a pendulum swinging kind of interview, and the sort of interview that can come back and haunt him. So if you haven't checked that clip out yet, if you didn't see the Dershowitz and Tucker Carlson interview, you should definitely check that out. I'm sure a clip will be on YouTube or Fox or whatever. I'll take a look as well and see if I can find a clip. And if I can, I will put it on my Twitter page. So that is all for tonight, folks. Tomorrow is a very busy day for me in my personal life. Now, we have hockey on from 9 a.m. till about 10 p.m. It's like March Madness for hockey fans now. So I'll be locked in watching a bunch of hockey. UFC is also on, so obviously I'll be watching that as well. So if I'm slow answering emails tomorrow or answering Twitter questions or stuff that I'm tagged in, nothing personal, taking a little private time to hang out with my pops, eat some food, watch some sports, and try and forget about all this madness that's going on around us. So I hope that everybody's enjoying their Friday night. I hope that if you're out, you're being responsible. Please do not drink and drive. And if you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that pertain to this episode can be found in the description box. For those of you who have donated to the GoFundMe, thank you very much. All right, everybody, until tomorrow.